Lieutenant Eugene Irwin's monologue about the concept of a castle begins the film, mentioning characteristics such as location, defense, garrison, and a flag that can be raised at the top. The castle where the story begins is a high-security military prison run by Colonel Ed Winter. Lieutenant Irwin was sentenced to 10 years in prison and transferred to a different facility on the same day of his trial. Winter mentions in his office that Irwin should be honored rather than sent to prison. Winter reluctantly agrees to house the new prisoner despite his admiration. The lieutenant arrives to be greeted by all inmates who learned of his arrest. Inmates bet on how long the lieutenant will stay in prison, which some men find inhumane. Irwin is greeted by Winter, who shows him respect and admiration. He then asks the same question he asks all new convicts. What do you expect from your stay at the prison? But the lieutenant only responds that he hopes to serve his sentence and return home. The following day, there is a brawl on the basketball court, where an inmate confronts Thumper, a large-built man. As soon as they start fighting, inmate Sam Yates starts working as a bookie among the prisoners to decide who wins. Irwin observes with interest as all forms of security appear unconcerned about the prisoners' fight. Still, just as Thumper gets a helping hand in the fight, Winter sounds the alarm, causing everyone to take cover by lying on the floor. Yates visits Irwin in his cell and introduces himself as a former officer, a helicopter pilot whose father fought alongside Irwin in Hanoi. After that, Irwin is late for his visiting hours when his daughter Rosalie visits him. The two have a raw conversation in which she brings up Irwin's absence as a father during her childhood and tells him he shouldn't expect anything from her. Irwin meets Aguilar in the yard, who greets him emotionally. Irwin asks why he's there, and Aguilar admits that he was a former Marine corporal who must now stay because of a bad mistake he made. Nonetheless, Irwin cheerfully cheers him up. Winter notices the salutes between Irwin and Aguilar from his office, which violates the rule of no longer treating each other as soldiers. So he asks Peretz to reprimand Aguilar, forcing him to hold a salute in the freezing rain. After a brief discussion with Winter, it is decided to punish Irwin for interfering with Peretz in the reprimand, so Irwin is sent to haul rocks under the sun the next day. The convicts place their bets with Yates, and Barnard does his best to assist Irwin, telling him he can at least remove his shirt. In doing so, Irwin reveals a series of scars on his back, some of which are marks from electric shocks due to torture during his wartime service. Hours pass and Irwin is still at work, encouraged by the convicts. However, Bob Prey causes him to stumble as he carries the last rock, hitting his head on the rock itself. When his outside time is up, Irwin is transferred to a solitary confinement. Winter visits him, claiming that the punishment was intended to teach the inmates a lesson. All of the inmates greet Irwin by ringing their cells as a sign of respect when he returns to his cell. Back at the camp, Irwin tells the prisoners not to be intimidated by the rock wall project. The prisoners then decide to demolish the barrier. When Winter inquires about who tore down the wall, a guard informs him that Irwin inspired the prisoners to do so. The project moves forward with all the prisoners working together to build a better wall than the previous one in just 1 week, with Irwin serving as a leader figure. In addition, as a token of appreciation for his contributions to the construction, they allowed Aguilar to carve his name on one of the rocks as a memento. Winter realizes that this newfound camaraderie among the prisoners is part of Irwin's strategy to build an army, even devising a code among the prisoners to refer to other soldiers under cover titles and thus go unnoticed. When Winter sends a bulldozer to tear down the wall and destroy the prisoners' morale, Aguilar gets in the way and causes the vehicle to stop. When the alarm goes off, everyone falls to the ground except Aguilar, who remains standing. In the face of refusal, Winter issues an order, and a rubber bullet pierces Aguilar's head, killing him. Irwin, enraged, appoints former Sergeant Major Delvo to order the prisoners to line up like soldiers. They all do so as requested to hear Irwin's parting words to the late Aguilar. Winter interrupts them with an early alarm to eat, and they all break ranks with a military-like salute gesture. Winter visits Irwin in his cell, feigning grief over the loss of Aguilar. But Erwin does not believe him and tells him that it will take more than that to break them. He also says he and the other inmates want him to resign because he is a disgrace to the uniform. Brigadier General Jim Wheeler pays Erwin a friendly visit after Winter requests that he speak with him about his improvised army. In the meantime, Winter receives a letter from Erwin threatening to kidnap Wheeler if he does not resign by 12:10 that day. Wheeler tells Erwin that he has already forgiven Winter 3 times, so as a prisoner, he has more power than Erwin. Winter organizes a pre-riot operation to protect General Wheeler, but it goes too far, attacking the inmates with a water cannon and almost throwing gas bombs at them. Finally, Winter realizes that Erwin's blockade was a ruse and orders the operation to be completed. Wheeler chastises Winter, saying it's absurd that an inmate could kidnap him. Winter demonstrates that they cannot trust Erwin's pride and that the consequences will be severe if they do. Convicts who conspired with Erwin are booked and isolated as punishment. Erwin reveals that the purpose of the bluffing letter was to learn how the riot squad operates and thus prepare for the next assault. He tries to cut a deal, reducing his sentence in exchange for joining Erwin's crusade. 2 of Erwin's co-workers stage a fight, with guards escorting them out of the mess hall so the inmates can plan their strategy alone. Erwin proposes that Winter violates the Uniform Code of Military Justice by losing control of the facility. They all agree, and Erwin begins training them for the attack, which includes avoiding barricades, guards, and helicopters, as well as raising the flag upside down in front of General Wheeler, demonstrating that Winter is no longer fit to command. Following this, Erwin decides to speak with Yates, revealing that he is already aware of his deal with Winter. Winter declines Yates' request but promises to keep him separate from the others for his safety. Erwin receives a letter from Rosalie in his cell, which includes a recent photo of her grandson, whom he has yet to meet in prison. Winter calls Yates again in the early morning to inquire about Erwin's plan. Yates receives a direct pass to the hole for his double betrayal. A frantic search for the missing flag begins with a chaotic inspection of the guards. All the inmates congregate in the central courtyard, but Winter realizes that this is exactly what they want. So he sends all the guards outside, only to discover that the exits have been sealed off. Erwin communicates with Winter via walkie-talkie, expressing his desire to take over the prison. The inmates pull out a catapult they built, which will be protected by several other inmates using trays as shields. Winter sends out his anti-riot unit to confront the insurgents. When Winter examines the stone thrown at him, he notices that it is the same one Aguilar used to write his name on the wall. Beaupre decides to engage the guards on the run as the water cannon arrives, but the inmates manage to cut off the vehicle's water supply, leaving the way open to fighting the guards. When Winter receives a call from General Wheeler announcing their arrival, he decides to call in reinforcements. With the assistance of the newly acquired anti-riot vehicle, the inmates reactivate the water supply and manage to press the helicopters so that Yates can board and fly it. Yates decides to confront the guard who shot Aguilar with rubber bullets and believes it's time to switch to real bullets. Despite taking direct hits, Yates stays in the air and uses the helicopter's tail to take out the gun turret, killing the guard on the spot. Unfortunately, this action causes Yates to lose control, resulting in the aircraft collapsing and rolling with him still inside. The battle is over, and the inmates form military formations to face an enraged Winter. He has them surrounded by shooters and orders the inmates to lie down, or they will open fire. But except for Erwin, who refuses Winter's request to give him his flag. No one listens until Erwin orders them to. Winter, fed up with such defiance, shoots Erwin before raising the flag. Winter's gun is confiscated, and he is handcuffed. Dr. Barnard tries to help him, but it is insufficient to stop the bleeding. Everyone then realizes that Erwin correctly raised the flag, and they salute in his honor. The film concludes with a memorial to the fallen soldiers at the rock wall, including Ramon Aguilar and Eugene R. Erwin.